Tech Talks Education. You are most welcome one more time. And we are going to look at atomic structure and bonding. Atomic structure and chemical bonding. So, we are talking of atomic structure and chemical bonding, and in this case, we are going to start by looking at what we call an atom. Then we look at its structure and other things will follow. We shall look at, or we shall have a deep look at what we call an atom. Then we shall also look at what we call chemical bonding. So, let us see what we call an atom. An atom is found in elements. I want to say, let us firstly look at what we call an element. An element is the smallest, let us use this. An element is a pure substance that cannot be split into simpler forms by any non-chemical means. So we have said that an element is a pure substance. That means if it is element A, you'll find that it is A, not mixed with B in any way, a pure substance, and we are saying that it cannot be split into simpler forms. That means that if I have a piece of an element like this, if I want smaller particles of it, I cannot use what we call chemical mean. A chemical mean like maybe reacting it with an acid, or maybe burning it, or any other chemical reaction or any other chemical process, because a chemical process will lead to the formation of a new substance. We want a process or a method which will not make that substance to change into another substance altogether. So the element, if it is to remain an element and we have only smaller particles of it, then we are supposed to use instead what we call physical means. And this physical means includes breaking. That is quite physical. You will not change the element into something else. We can use the method of, say, pounding. If we are to get smaller particles, we can use the method of crushing. We can use the method of grinding and any other physical method, but not a chemical method which will lead to a chemical reaction and hence changing the element into another substance altogether. So an atom in this case pertains to elements. So an element is a pure substance that cannot be split into simpler forms by any non-chemical means. And that's what we call an element. So we are saying, if you break, or you pound, or you crush, or you grind, or you use any other physical means, then you'll be able to get simpler particles or simpler forms of that element. So, if this is my element, I can break, and I get a smaller particle again, break, and possibly I go ahead and I crush, and when I continue breaking this element, I will then reach the smallest particle which I cannot break anymore. So that smallest particle is what we call an atom. So atoms pertains to elements. So we cannot talk about an atom of a compound. We have to, in this case, talk of an atom of an element. Atoms can be in compounds because in a compound these atoms simply combine and form such a compound. So, an atom by definition, or let us first look at some facts about an atom. It is the smallest particle of an element, the smallest particle of an element, and it means that that particle of an element is indivisible. Indivisible means that we cannot split it further into simpler or smaller particles. So an atom is therefore the smallest particle of an element. It is indivisible. 3, an atom is electrically neutral. So an atom is not positively charged or negatively charged. It is just electrically neutral. So the net charge in an atom is just 0. Not that it doesn't contain positive or negative particles. It does. Only that the numbers of the positive and the negative particles in an atom, what we call the subatomic particles, they are the same. So if we have equal numbers of positive and negative particles in an atom, it means that neutrality will be struck because these particles here, which are having opposite charge signs and they are equal in number, they will have to cancel. They cancel and they give us 0 charge. So that one makes an atom to be electrically neutral. And then finally, atoms do take part in chemical reactions. For example, look at water. The formula of water is this one, H2O. In water, we can clearly see from the formula of water that there are 2 atoms of hydrogen that are combined with 1 atom of oxygen. 2 atoms of hydrogen, and hydrogen is an element, combines with 1 atom of oxygen to form water, meaning that in the formation of water, hydrogen atoms and oxygen atom they combine and they form a new substance, which is water, meaning that atoms take part in such combinations that lead to the formation of new substances. So such a combination is called a chemical combination, and we call it a chemical reaction. So these are the 4 facts about an atom that can give us a comprehensive definition of an atom. The smallest particle of an element is a fact. It is indivisible, it is electrically neutral, and it takes part in chemical reactions. So we are therefore going to define what we call an atom. By definition, therefore, an atom is the smallest indivisible particle of an element which is electrically neutral and takes part in chemical reactions. So this is what we call an atom. So atoms are particles of elements, and we have seen what we call an element. So an atom is the smallest indivisible particle of an element. An atom is electrically neutral and it takes part in chemical reactions. So I want you to be able to remember the elements whose atoms we are going to look at. We have an element like sodium, calcium, we have magnesium, aluminium, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, we have boron, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, carbon, lead, zinc, manganese, chromium, copper, and many others. All those ones are elements, and their smallest particles are what we call the atoms. So an atom is the smallest indivisible particle of an element. It is electrically neutral and it takes part in chemical reactions. So in chemistry, when we shall be dealing with atoms of elements, we shall be using the chemical symbol of the element. So you are expected to write a correct chemical symbol of the element, bearing in mind that you must mind about this, the capital letters and the small letters, their sizes. I would rather, if X is the chemical symbol, if X is a letter in a chemical symbol, if at all the chemical symbol of an element is XY, and Y is supposed to be a small letter, make sure that our Y is below the line that cuts this capital letter into two. It must be quite below. It must be so distinct. So we shall be representing atoms of elements with the chemical symbols of the elements. If the number is more than 1, then we indicate it here. Supposing I have 2 of these atoms here, then it will be XY2. And that is what we shall be doing, and that's what we call an atom. The smallest indivisible particle of an element, which is electrically neutral and takes part in chemical reactions. So that is a simple introduction of what we call an atom. So after this, we are going to split an atom, and then we see what it contains. That is going to be the structure of an atom that we are going to see, but later. So this is Tech Talks Education. Thank you for watching.